Chapter 11. Questioning a Celebrity. I was in the kitchen putting the final touches on a tray of baked goods for Fergie and her camera crew when Molly had an unexpected call from our previous employer. The diner called to say she could pick up her last paycheck. Molly borrowed my car and would be gone to the city for the rest of the day. Conrad came to join me in the kitchen.
"There you are!" exclaimed Conrad. "I have been looking all over for you."
"You could have called," I mentioned, plastic wrapping the tray.
"I need one of those tracking apps they have these days," grumbled Conrad. "Then I wouldn't know where everyone is."
"You could still use the phone," I remarked, "or text."
"I prefer to talk in person. That's what's wrong with today's culture. They need to rebuild the human connection," complained Conrad as he snatched an extra square, popping it into his mouth. "This is good. Now, I went and had lunch with the new coroner. Nice old-school type of guy. He just travels in from the city as needed. He wouldn't give out too many details, but I was able to confirm it is strychnine poisoning and a bad heart which killed Bart. He was a ripe candidate for a heart attack, and it was brought on by the contractions of the muscles from the poison."
"The poison was in the pesticide?" I asked.
"For sure," nodded Conrad. "The lab is analyzing the pesticide found on Grubb's farm. It contains the poison. I doubt there will be any fingerprints on the container, but if any happen to be there, the lab will find them."
"Did you find out what type of food the poison was in?" I questioned.
"Nope," shrugged Conrad. "The coroner wouldn't tell me that. I gather it was a fruit of some sort. Also, funny thing, Bart hadn't eaten the bite from the brownie which was found in his hand. Police are trying to get a dental workup from the brownie, but I doubt it will work. The brownie is too soft of a material to get a good imprint from."
"It just seems weird someone would take a bite of my brownie and place it in Bart's hand," I mused.
"People do strange things,"
noted Conrad as he finished off the baked good.
"I've seen a lot of strangeness over the years of my profession. Who is the tray for?"
"For Fergie," I explained. "I'm hoping to use it as an excuse to get to her room so I can question her."
"Who is Fergie?" wondered Conrad, his brow lowered in confusion.
"She's the television chef who was in town for the farmer's market. She and Mayor Whitcomb found Bart's body," I answered as I wrote out a fake receipt for the baked goods. "I've heard she's staying at the Bluebells, and I would like to know what she saw when they found Bart. Also, she might just be a suspect. Apparently Bart and Fergie had some past history."
"The plot thickens," nodded Conrad before he winced. "Now I sound like Bee in her mystery novels."
I had a little laugh. I'm sure Bee would take it as a compliment. "Speaking of Bee, have you seen her around?"
"Nope."
Conrad shook his head.
"I expect she's still talking to the gossips in town, trying to see who they think might have killed Bart."
"Did you say it was Mabel's niece who worked with the chef at the White Oaks Resort?" I inquired.
"Her name is Wanda," affirmed Conrad. "She's the one who overheard the argument between the chef and Bart."
I should talk to her as well, I decided. First, though, I need to get to Fergie before she leaves town.
"Good luck with that."
Conrad snatched an extra square before I put them away in the fridge.
"I'm heading over to the protest. I heard Will Knapp is taking requests for karaoke, and I do like to hear the man sing."
"Karaoke?" I asked in surprise.
"Sure. Gotta keep the people entertained so they will stay," noted Conrad. "Keeps the sit-ins alive."
"That's a good plan," I conceded.
"Thelma and Mabel are pros at organizing these sorts of things," nodded Conrad.
"Can you give me a lift to town?" I requested, picking up the tray of baking. I lent the bug to Molly.
"Of course,"
replied Conrad. Soon enough we were in his old Lincoln town car, arriving in Oaks Crossing. Conrad dropped me off at the Bluebell's bed and breakfast. I went directly to the front counter, holding my tray of baked goods. "Hi, I have a delivery for room 4B. The teenage girl remembered me and gave a doubtful look, picking the receipt up off the tray. "Excuse me a moment." She picked up the phone, waiting before quietly talking to someone on the other end. A couple of seconds later she hung up and handed the receipt back to me. "4B is down the hall and to your left," she told me. "Thank you," I replied evenly, hoping to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Obviously, she had called the room to confirm the order, and whoever picked it up had simply been pleased with the thought of more food, not questioning no one had actually put the order in. I quickly made my way down the hall, hoping my little gamble would pay off and I wasn't giving away free food to a complete stranger. Just in case, I took the receipt, crumpling it up and putting it into one of my jean pockets. Knocking on the door, I waited in suspense. A guy opened the door. I recognized him as one of the people who had followed Fergie around the farmer's market. I thought he was the one who had been holding the boom mic. His eyes lit up as he saw the tray. "Hi, I'm Ivy," I introduced myself. "Here are some complimentary baked goods." "Nice! I'm Connor," he told me, practically salivating over the tray. "You can set it on the table right there." I came into the room, which looked like a tornado of clothes and equipment had been through. I could see empty pizza boxes, empty cans of soda, filming equipment, and a bunch of clothing strewn about. I nudged the boxes of pizza aside to make way for the tray of baked goods. "What's this?" Fergie came out of a side room, looking at the baked goods, then at me. "Aren't you the girl from the farmer's market? The one who got in an argument with Baker from the Tasty Treats Bakery?" "Ivy Thurman," I reminded her. "I brought a tray of baked goods for you and the crew." "That was nice of you," she murmured. Fergie didn't look quite the same without a full face of makeup. She seemed more vulnerable and younger. Fergie wore a short silk robe and a dark floral print. Pushing some clothes aside, she sat at the sofa. The mic guy tore off the plastic wrap, helping himself to a square. "Did you bake any more brownies? Like the ones you had at the farmer's market? I didn't know edibles were legal in this state." I sighed. "They are illegal, but I'm not selling them. It was a mistake." "Too bad. They were excellent," he mentioned, mouthful, as he grabbed another treat. "I heard you discovered the body," I mildly remarked. If I hadn't been watching for Fergie's reaction, I wouldn't have seen the slight shudder roll through her body at the mention of death. "It was horrible," she whispered. "I couldn't believe it." "It was like filming an episode of Cops," another film crew member came in, taking from the baked goods tray. "Highlight of my career." Connor looked like he had a hard time swallowing the rest of what was in his mouth. He quickly grabbed a half-empty soda can, sipping from it, pale under his tan. I wonder if he had choked, yet he seemed to be okay. "Someone told me Bart was found with one of my brownies in his hand," I revealed with just a touch of worry in my voice, trying to be believable. "I hope it's not true. It would be bad for my business." "There was a brownie in his hand," confirmed Connor in a voice a little above a coarse whisper. "I would show you the film, but the police confiscated it," offered filming guy, flipping his long blonde locks out of his face. "Too bad. I think our producer would have loved it." Fergie shuddered again. "I feel sorry for the man. All he wanted was to get on a baking show and have a little fame. Now he's dead and no one really knows why." "I think you might know why," I said cautiously. "What do you mean?" She gave me a sharp look. I pulled out my phone. Molly had sent me the picture she had taken of the class photo with Bart and Fergie in it. I showed it to Fergie. She gasped. "He's the Bart Baker I went to school with? I didn't even recognize him. He has put on so much weight." It was true Bart had gained some girth since the class photo, but he wasn't unrecognizable in my opinion. You both have had a history together. "It's true," shrugged Fergie. "We went to culinary school together. Bart was very talented, but he couldn't get past how not everyone shared the same palate as him. He kept trying to put vegetables like asparagus in his baking. It was awful. His brash attitude didn't win him any favors either. We weren't friends, nor were we enemies. We just happened to be in the same class." "I was told you didn't graduate," I revealed. "I was told it was because of something Bart did." "I graduated," growled Fergie in exasperation. "Not at this particular school, but at another. Yes, I was kicked out of the program, along with several other students. It was a harmless prank on the teacher. How was I supposed to know he's allergic to turmeric? It's not like turmeric is a common allergy. How we were to know he would end up in the hospital?" "Why doesn't anyone know about this?" Filming guy asked with interest. "It could add a whole new layer to your persona." "There are some things the public doesn't need to know," retorted Fergie before she sighed in exhaustion. "Rather like I'm sure Miss Thurman doesn't want the public to know she got me and my filming crew high on magic brownies." There was a brief gap in the conversation before I admitted, "You're right. I would prefer it wasn't public knowledge." "See," softly said Fergie, "people might think the wrong thing." I was in the running for first in class. After I was kicked out, Bart naturally got the honor of first in class. However, I don't have any ill will toward him. I should actually thank him. If he hadn't gone to my next culinary school, I would never have gone down the path that I have and become the star that I am. Strangely enough, I believed her when she said she had no animosity toward Bart. You should go, inserted Connor quietly. You have upset her. He opened the door to the hall, waiting for me to exit. Those were some superb brownies, Film Guy mentioned. Fergie's eyes were clouded as she turned away from me. I'm sorry for upsetting you, I apologized. The individual the police have arrested as a suspect in Bart's death is a friend of mine. I don't believe he killed Bart. Fergie turned back to me, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't kill Bart, if that's what you're thinking. I don't believe you did, I told her, yet I had to ask questions, just to be certain. Please, just leave, Connor said. There seemed to be nothing more I could say. I exited the room and shut the door behind me with a firm click. I could hear the locks turn behind me. I felt awful, certain Fergie was innocent. I would take her off of my list of suspects, I decided. Once outside, I took in a deep breath of refreshing clean air. I planned on talking to Tristan next. I had been told by Thelma that Tristan was most likely to be found at the Oaks Crossing Community Theater. On my way there, I had to pass through the center of town. The quickest way would be cut through the park. As I was walking, I noticed Detective Armand sitting atop of a picnic table. I shouldn't have recognized him without his usual neat business suit, but for some reason I had known exactly who he was, even though Armand was wearing a regular police uniform. Somehow, it seemed to highlight his tan face and brown hair with the golden highlights. I wasn't about to say the uniform made the man, but it certainly helped show off his trim physique. Armand was reading from a sheaf of papers, a file on the table beside him, while he sipped from a take-out cup of coffee. A half-eaten sub was nearby in its wrapper. A breeze picked up one of the photographs, sending it twirling through the air before it landed on the grass. I picked it up, looking at the image in confusion. It was a bunch of apricots. Armand promptly took the photo out of my hand. Thank you. I cocked my head at him, quickly looking as he gathered up the paperwork, putting it into the file. I could see the inside of a baker's name on a report, and a report of apricots before it was quickly put out of my sight. You are investigating Bart's death, I accused in delight. I thought you were off the case. I am off the case, frowned a grumpy Armand. Until the next incident comes, which requires my attention, the chief has me writing parking tickets. Can I look at the file? I wheedled a little, hoping you might just bend the rules this one time. This is official police business, Ivy, a disapproving Armand told me. I can't show you confidential information. You're looking at it, I mentioned. Last I heard, you aren't even doing detective duties. See the uniform? Part of the police department. He motioned to his name tag. It means I still have some privileges. You don't think you owe me for throwing Molly and I in jail for a night when we did nothing wrong? I remarked, one eyebrow delicately arched. Your friend Molly got half the department high, which is why I'm on foot patrol, grimaced Armand. I honestly don't think it's a fair trade. Exactly, I chirped, knowing we weren't remotely on the same page when it came to who was getting the unfair portion of the deal. Jail overnight was super scary. Did you know Carl snores and talks in his sleep? The benches aren't very comfortable either. Ivy, you are not going to guilt-trip me into showing you confidential information, reprimanded Armand lightly, his lips twitching a little before he sipped his coffee. Okay, what about if we just discussed it? I suggested. I could tell you about what I've learned, and you could tell me about all those apricots and whatever else is in the file. What did you learn? Questioned Armand before my words registered fully. Wait a minute, you are not investigating this. Ivy, this is a murder, not finding a cat. Jackson Grubbs is a friend, and he's innocent. I folded my arms, readying myself for a battle of wills. Half the town is protesting at the police station because they know he didn't do anything. Ava asked for my help. Armand groaned. The chief is blaming me for these protests of yours. If you value my job, you will stop this nonsense. I shrugged, pretending to be unconcerned about his job. I'm afraid the protest has taken on a life of its own. The only way to stop the protesters is to free Jackson by proving someone else committed the murder. I still can't discuss investigations with you, Ivy, admonished Armand a bit impatiently. You should stop trying to look into this murder. Someone wanted Bart dead bad enough to kill. The last thing you want is to attract a killer's attention.
Ha! I pointed a finger at him in triumph. You think the killer's still on the loose.
I didn't say that.
Quickly Armand backtracked.
I grinned happily. You're investigating because you don't think Jackson murdered Bart either. Armand ran a hand over his face. He reached into a pocket, taking out a pack of nicotine gum and popping a piece into his mouth. He thought for a moment. If you continue what you're doing, you can be charged with impeding an investigation.
Funny, I remarked with some sarcasm.
I'm serious, replied Armand, his steely blue eyes fixed firmly on my face. So is the chief of police. I don't believe you're favorable terms with him.
Neither are you, I sweetly responded. If you don't think the chief is enjoying the protest now, wait till I put it into Phase 2.
Phase 2? What is Phase 2?
Armand's voice lowered as he glowered at me.
I honestly had no idea what Phase 2 might be. However, I was sure Thelma and the gang could come up with something dramatic. I just smiled at Armand. Armand stood up from the picnic table, towering over me. No Phase 2. No investigating. No getting involved in this in any way. Do I make myself clear?
I didn't like the way he was trying to intimidate me by using his height to his advantage. Narrowing my eyes, I enunciated deliberately. No.
Excuse me? A disbelieving Armand said.
No, I repeated smugly. I had the distinct impression very few people had ever told Armand no. Plus, I was still irked over the whole jail episode, and the fact that I had lost business due to my unexpected overnight stay. An entire week's worth of business for a family reunion who could have rented multiple sites. Let Armand do his worst. I had an army of senior citizens at my back. He didn't look like he quite knew what to say. A muscle ticked in his clenched jaw.
Ivy?
Whatever might have come up next was forgotten as Thelma yelled from the distance, swiftly walking toward us. Yoo-hoo! Ivy! We need to talk! We waited as an out-of-breath Thelma approached. Ava needs you. The poor girl is just blubbering away and none of us can get a straight word out of her. I thought you should try to talk to her. After all, she trusts you with everything that is going on with Jackson. You see? I leveled an accusatory look at the detective. You made Ava cry. With that parting remark, I linked my arm in Thelma's and marched across the grass back the way Thelma had come.